bitch, a ribbon Coca-Cola. We invented the cherry tomato and Waze USB drives and the Iron Dome. Israeli salad, Uzi Stenton, Jaffa's orange crow. Microchips is us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Bodagabamo's us, Olive Garden us, White Cloth for us, Sabra Hamas, Hezbollah us.
Hola, ¿cómo está? Bien. ¿Y tú? Me llamo Matt Lieb, and welcome to Bad Hasbara.
El podcast, what's the superlative in Spanish? The most moral.
Mucho moral.
Yeah, muy
moral.
There's some motto. Anyway, it doesn't matter. World's most moral podcast, whatever language
Spanish.
you speak.
My name is Matt Lieb. I will be your most moral co-host for this podcast.
I'm Daniel Mate, other most moral co-host, well into our 300 of episode batches. You know, we're at 202 now. It feels like yesterday we were gunning for 200, and we're in our
third 100. That's one way of looking at it. I hadn't thought that we have, done more episodes than it looks like. That's it hurts. It hurts so much. It hurts so good, though. Thank you all for being part of our hundreds of episodes we have now made. And subscribe if you haven't yet. That'd be weird if you hadn't and you'd listen to 202 episodes. But if maybe that's you, maybe you're someone who hasn't done that, so do it. Subscribe or go to patreon.com/badasbar and join our Patreon. Very exciting news for those of you who have spent the past 2 years listening to this podcast and being at the $10 tier or more. We've always described the $10 tier as, hey, you get a shout out at the end of the episode. And then we kind of just forgot that we said that. And years went on. And finally, we are doing it at the end of the episode. If you were a $10 or more patron, at any point since we started the Patreon, you will have your name shouted out in a scroll. You'll see names. It's basically the credits to people who decided to really help us out by becoming patrons.
Even if you're dead.
You might be dead.
Even if you turned Zionist and you're dead to us, we're still going to call out your name because your former self.
Credit.
We're going to dead name you ideologically.
Exactly.
You existed. You were here. You was here.
Yeah.
And you're going to get your shout out.
I love the idea of dead naming is just when you put someone's name on their tombstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You got to not give them a name.
We are gathered here today, dearly beloved, to dead name this wonderful man.
Person. Shout out to producer Adam Levin, by the way. Let him hear it. He is great, always on the ones and twos and lower threes. And shout out to our first time ever. We have a guy who's just doing editing, and I just want to shout out to him, Brent. God bless you. You're a great editor, and you're making us look beautiful.
Editor Brent.
We got producer Adam. We got editor Brent. We got co-host you and me. That's how this podcast works, and we thank you, everyone, for listening to it. We love you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by Mercy Corps. For more than 3 decades, Mercy Corps has worked in the West Bank and Gaza, meeting critical humanitarian needs. Their programs have supported Palestinian communities by helping communities cope with crises. There's probably a way to say that. Crises. Supporting marginalized and vulnerable youth and increasing economic opportunities. If you have any money and you would like to support a good cause, Mercy Corps is where you should go. That's mercycorps.org. Please donate now. Daniel.
Gaza needs your help right now. There's a rodent infestation. The conditions are worsening.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And it's also being pushed out of the news by all of the other horrible shit that the United States is engaged in and Israel is engaged in. So people are, getting their focus shifted away from the humanitarian crisis that's going on. So please donate your money to a good cause, not just, but also, get your name shouted out at the end of the episode. But you can do both. Daniel, what's a spin?
Well, first of all, let me announce for anyone who is not on Spotify for moral or financial or any other reasons.
Sure.
First of all, salute to you.
Yeah.
I have gone ahead and made a Google Doc that captures all of the albums currently on the What's the Spin playlist.
Wow.
So you could create your own in your own streaming service, or just, check out what albums you might want to check out. It's bit.ly/What's the Spin list. Producer Adam, thank you for the catchy little URL. Appreciate that. So what's the spin today? Well, you've heard, I'm trying to keep it down to 6 albums a week.
I've heard.
And you've heard of the game 6 Degrees of Separation?
Yeah, it usually has to do with Nicolas Cage.
That's right, or Kevin Bacon.
Or that's right. Yeah. Kevin Bacon also. I do it with Bruce Willis.
I decided to try and do Bruce Willis.
Yeah. I just
Mark Hamill. To Bruce Willis. Go.
You put me on the spot. Okay, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was in fucking Star Wars. I'm too tired for this. I can't.
If you can get it to Mace Windu, then you got Pulp Fiction.
That's good. That's true. Wait. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you did it.
Except
Mark Hamill. Okay, so all right, Mark Hamill
timeline,
was in a bunch of Star Wars movies, and one of them had Frank Oz playing Yoda.
As Yoda, very good.
And
that's
Yoda was in the Mace Windu.
Also, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, and
yeah, I figured that too. That also works.
Yeah,
Thank you for the assist, but I could have done it on my own if I wasn't so tired. Mark Hamill was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back with Kevin Bacon, who was in Die Hard with a Vengeance with B. Willie. See?
Hey, not
Bruce
so
Willis
hard.
Yeah.
But here's what's harder. Try doing 6 degrees of separation from oneself. And here's what I mean. Let me start with this album, Lee Morgan, Indeed. Lee Morgan's a fantastic trumpet player from the golden age of jazz. And there's a song on here called Gaza Strip.
Okay.
Believe it or not, which is the reason I bought the album. I had to have a song called Gaza Strip.
Okay.
The album is called Indeed. On the De La Soul album, Art Official Intelligence Mosaic Thump, there's a song called Set the Mood, featuring the rapper Indeed.
I see what we're doing. Yeah. Connecting them to each other.
That's right. The song, but it has to circle back to the first one by the 6th one.
Oh,
the 6th one
we call that a Laurent.
Yeah, Laurent, exactly. So, the song is called Set the Mood. Well, Duke Ellington has a famous song, Mood Indigo. I actually don't own it in my collection. It's been covered by a million jazz artists, but as far as I can find. But I do have a Duke Ellington album, the concert of sacred music. Beautiful, beautiful album.
Nice. Did you ever see, The Little Mermaid?
I know the songs from it.
Okay, Under the Sea, there is a moment in which Sebastian's talking about all the different fish, and he mentions one as the Duke of Soul. And if you look at that fish, it is Duke Ellington ass fish. It is. They just put Duke Ellington's face on a fish, which is great up until you get to Die Blackfish is black, and then it's a blackface fish going ah, and that's
But
problematic.
Sebastian himself is clearly Caribbean, so what's the problem?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Is it really racist if the crab is also a crab?
Exactly. So Mood Indigo, got to go for the Indigo Girls. This is their not their debut, but their eponymous album with Closer to Find, all that.
Oh, that's them?
And there's from the Barbie movie. That's the Indigo Girls. Great tune. I went to the doctor. I went to the mountains.
Yeah.
So a couple of possible links to the next album. There's a song on here called Prince of Darkness, and on Third Base, the Cactus album, there's a song called Triple Stage Darkness. I prefer this connection. Indigo Girls is that song by the Beastie Boys, that sexist song about getting girls to do your laundry. And the first song on this album is called Sons of Third Base. It's a total diss of the Beastie Boys.
Really?
By the other white rap group of the time, Third Base, who were excellent. MC Serch is Jewish.
Is what I thought you were going to say. Oh, wait, are they also Jewish?
MC Serch is. I don't think Prime Minister Pete Nice is. He's the other rapper. But they're both white. There they are. See how Jewish that guy looks?
I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, so Sons of Third Base, Beastie Boys reference. Okay, the Jewish guy in Third Base is named MC Serch. So I've got the song Strip Search by Faith No More on Album of the Year, which leads us back to Gaza Strip.
Strip search. Beautiful.
I did it.
He did
We
it, guys.
We did it.
It turns out all of these guys did a movie with Bruce Willis. That's what it turned out.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that. And we have a wonderful show for you guys. We actually, we're going to get to our guest after the break. He is a returning champion. Miko Peled is back. You'll see him in a few minutes. But first, we have some other stuff that we're going to do before we get to our interview with Miko Peled. And the first thing I want to do is point out something that, when you find something in the Hasbarosphere that is only something that you and your other anti-Zionist friends will appreciate.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
Because you try to send things, if I try to send Daniel Ryan Spalding shit to someone, everyone's just like, oh, who's this gay fascist? And I was like, I'm like, I don't have time to explain who he is. So I found a Noah Tishby video.
You just dropped a hard F-bomb there.
What did I say? Tell me.
The F slur, the fascist slur? You called him a gay fascist.
Oh, yeah. For a second, I was like, did I black out and become homophobic?
No,
yes, that's
that
true.
Brings me back to the schoolyard, calling kids Gaylord homo fascists.
That's right. I used to do it all the time. That's how we rolled in communist school. But I found a video from Noah Tishby. Well, I have two videos. One that I want to play in which, I'm not really sure what her technical job is ever since being laid off by the Israeli government. But she's kind of trying to create new streams of content for herself and new streams of income.
Here's one new streams of service, Matt. I think she's trying to be of service.
That's true. She's trying to be of service. Yeah. Just trying to help out other Zionists in need. A Zionist in need is a Zionist indeed. And here she is with a little service that she is going to help all of us out with.
Ever wonder what Zionism is?
Yes, all the time. What else?
Judaism is? Or why the world can't stop talking about a tiny country like Israel?
Hi, I'm Noah Tishby. I am a best-selling author, and I'm Israel's former special envoy for combating anti-Semitism.
How's that going for you?
Yeah. How's are you combating it? Are you still combating it? Seems like probably working out great.
I've been hearing questions like,
Is Israel an apartheid state? Why does the word Zionism scare me?
I decided to break it down. Introducing What Is with Noah Tishby, that's me. A series for the Jew curious, or the Zio curious.
All right. I just want to point out, she just said Zio curious, and officially, this makes Zio not a slur. Doesn't this officially just completely defang the idea that anyone who says Zio is a slur? No, it's not a slur. And the reason it's not a slur is because people who just learned about Zionism for the first time are like, seems like a kind of nice abbreviated version of Zionist. Right?
But my only concern, Matt, is she could flip it in a different direction and say that, Zio curious is like bi-curious, which means that if you're Zio incurious, you might be a bigot,
Oh,
you might be
that's true.
Ziophobic.
I mean, let's be honest, 100% she's going to try to add a Z to LGBTQ. She's 100. She's gonna remove the T, and it's gonna be LGBZ. 100% guaranteed. Watch. You watch.
But he's curious, really. Short, clear, fun answers to big, misunderstood topics.
Like for real, not the propaganda.
What is the land of Israel? Judaism, anti-Semitism, the Holocaust. Subscribe to my YouTube, text me on 818-408-4344. Any kind of updates. See you soon.
All right, so I am 100% going to be texting Noah Tishby directly, asking lots of questions about Zionism.
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
I'm about to love bomb that service. I'm about to curiosity bomb.
I miss you so much, babe. I just whenever you give out like a full because that phone number, I was like, that's was that an 818 area code? Is she in the valley? Like, I think I'm just gonna drive over and see if I could visit. So I saw that video and it led me to another video, a much more important video. Noah Tishby is someone who, she says her credits right there. She goes, I'm a best-selling author. And I used to work in the propaganda department at Israel. But the way that she is described and the way that she is presented is almost like, oh, this already famous person is very pro-Israel. She is not an already famous person. I did an episode of A Bit Fruity with Matt Bernstein for his Patreon, and in that episode, he did all the research about No Tishby. Turns out I've been wrong about her this whole time. I thought she was famous from like being on CSI or like NCIS or some fucking network show. No, absolutely not. She was Mrs. Israel. She was, she won like a beauty contest, and then she became sort of just a propagandist for the state of Israel and moved to LA in order to, for the state of Israel, be a propagandist for towards celebrities. So the amazing thing about her is that her entire vibe is that of someone who is already known, and that really comes true in this next video that I'm going to play for you, Daniel.
Yeah, never seen it.
And Daniel, this is a challenge.
Okay.
The challenge is to see how long you can stomach this before you just don't feel good enough about yourself to watch it. If you cringe out, you are allowed to cringe out. But if you do, you got to let me know, okay?
Okay, so this is a kind of somatic experiencing exercise. I'd stay in touch with my gut feelings,
Exactly.
pay attention to the cues in my body, feel if I'm bracing, having a
Yes.
trauma response, all that stuff. Okay.
Right. It's kind of like those videos where people put water in their mouth and they watch funny videos to see if they, if
Now,
they do
am
a
I
spit
allowed
take.
to do EMDR or tapping while I'm doing this to ground myself, or do I just have to, I don't have recourse to that?
You have to, where you are straight up, Clockwork Orange style watching this shit.
I'm going to
Okay.
put my hands behind my back and pretend that my eyelids are glued open.
Exactly.
right,
Here it
go for it.
is.
Somewhere over the rainbow,
Yes. You have to deal with the notes.
in the dream that you dare to dream really do come true.
I know.
Little break.
Oh, no, don't do it.
Today I wish upon a star and wake up when the clouds are far behind.
Not enough reverb in all of Abbey Road.
Behind
Oh my
me,
God.
when trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney tops, that's where
The chimney,
you
huh?
find me. Oh, some
I can't.
Oh.
The
The face is, when you actually see her singing, like just trying to produce noise out of that instrument.
Dude, I have yet to get through that video. I can't do it. There's something about someone being flat that it's like glass in my brain.
Yeah.
Like it's like I can't
But flat and passionate at the same time is worse.
Yes. Confidently flat.
Confidently flat. Yeah.
Where they're just like they're doing the face of a guy, like crushing it. It's like if you did John Mayer face during a solo, but it was just dog shit. Imagine there's no pitch correction. It's easy if you try. Thank you, Adam.
Well, look, on one hand, it's terrible and cringeworthy. You saw my face. It was horrible. On the other hand, I do feel somewhat vindicated by that video because the version of Over the Rainbow that she's doing, and by the way, it's not as cringe as but it's also not as entertaining as when we had that guy doing it. Remember at that conference in Israel?
Oh yeah,
When he sang the name of the piano player as
but he
the
was
piano player
doing just Somewhere Over the Rainbow, just the actual, not the
the
what is
Israel,
it?
whatever his name
Israel,
is. Actually, I bet she chose it.
Vivole.
Yeah, the Hawaiian guy of blessed memory whose name is Israel. I'm sure that's why she chose it. But
That's
this
right.
Is, yeah.
The only Israel
I recognize
the
is the late great Israel Kamakawiole.
Yeah,
Okay,
Kamaka Vivole.
All right.
Yeah.
So what I want to say about that is, for years, in fact, when that version first came out, and no disrespect to this man who seemed lovely and meant a lot to a lot of people, but
Sure.
when that version first came out and went viral, it was one of the first sort of viral feel good moments of the internet.
100%.
Viral songs. I was like, this is a bad omen, because just taking the Yip Harburg and Harold Arlen song "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" erasing the actual melody and just putting a couple of like simple ukulele chords under it just takes away to me like, and I just could never, the lyric just didn't come through for me in that version. And I was like, this is all about feels and vibes and like some vague thing that we're being primed to now. Like it's lubricating some new circuit in our brain. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want anything to do with it. He messed the lyrics up. He moved things around, so the lyric wasn't even intact.
It's a medley with
"Oh Wonderful World."
What a Wonderful World! Yeah,
right.
So it's a big eye roll.
So it's vindicating for me to see the tackiest person. Like it was always such an Israeli coded cover version is what I'm saying.
I mean, literally.
Sorry, Israel, but it just was.
R.I.P. to Israel Kamak.
Who I'm sure would be a strong anti-Zionist if he was alive today.
I bet you he would too. But yeah, no, I mean, listen, I've never been a huge fan of that song. That song pretty much exists for like compilations of crying grandmas at graduation. But like, I know that people enjoy that, music. He has a bunch of other great songs that are not that.
Great. That's good to know.
That deserve some recognition.
To me, that song is not that song without the octave that opens the melody.
Interesting.
Somewhere. I mean, that's
true. That's true.
It's just, you take that out and I don't know what you've got.
Also, I think what is it? Like, that I guess it's a bridge. Going like, fucking half tones to whole tones and then all the way back up. Oh, yes, that's right. What is that, a fourth? It's just like, it is a truly beautiful song. His version is cute. But you're right. I feel like
it's too easy for yoga teachers. It's just too easy for mediocre environments to employ that version. Like it really is.
Yeah, you're right.
Because all you have to feel is something vague.
Yeah. There's a sort of like it's like it's the musical version of fucking Soma from Brave New World. It's just like a mind-numbing drug that makes you go like, oh, everything's chill.
Yeah. So welcome to Bet Hasbar, the world's most,
we're anti-Zionist
hateration podcast.
That's right.
We hate songs all
Israels. We hate all Israels on this podcast. Moving on to our next subject. This is a subject that everyone's been talking about. Once again, I hate to bring it up, but Tucker Carlson has once again been put into the ring with
once again we are forced to be the drive-by Tuckers.
That's right. And he does this so often. It's not even really. I'm no longer saying, well, I'm giving credit to. It's not even about Tucker anymore. It's not at this point. It is just him being boosted by people who are just that convinced that they can take him on while still maintaining a dishonest version of Israel in their head.
And it's people showcasing how ghoulish they are by making him look good.
Right. And that's why we are now forced to do a segment whenever this happens. This segment is called Tuck My Life. Tuck My Life is now. There is our new bumper for Tuck My Life. Tucker Carlson. He was recently interviewed in a New York Times podcast called The Interview, and host, was it Lulu Garcia Navarro, and he got to talking about Israel. Now,
and she went to Maine and sat down with him in his breakfast nook, apparently.
Went to the breakfast nook and sat down with Tucker. I will say this, because already there's been a lot of discourse about Lulu's politics and whatnot. This is not her first time talking about Israel, and she has actually been at least competently talking about it with adversarial figures for a while. She did do a great interview with the ADL's John Greenblatt, in which she cornered him into hearing a definition of genocide that pissed him off so much that he retweeted people saying she was anti-Semitic for doing that.
Okay.
She also did an interview with Antony Blinken, in which she asked this question.
Secretary Blinken worry that perhaps you have been presiding over what the world will see as a genocide?
No, it's not, first of all.
like this fucking scumbag. I forgot how much I hated him.
Oh yeah.
Second, as to how the world sees it, I can't fully answer to that.
I mean, just watching him immediately just go, no, I don't worry about that at all. And also, who knows how the world views it? He knows how the world views it.
What a slime ball. Now, are we sure that's her? Because she looks like a different woman to me than the woman in the Tucker video.
No, that's her. That is Lulu Garcia Navarro.
Okay.
So, with those questions, I thought she did, at least a competent job.
Hey,
Those
man.
are real
Confront
good
both
questions.
those guys, yeah.
Yes. Then, with all that confidence built up, it was time to take on Tucker Carlson. And here is the clip of Tucker and Lulu talking about many things, but most importantly, Nick Fuentes. Here we go.
Who do you think is more morally repulsive, Ted Cruz or
Who
Nick
do you think
Fuentes?
is more morally repulsive?
Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a sitting U.S. senator who has called for the killing of people who did nothing wrong, whole populations who advocated for this war. Nick Fuentes is like a kid. He's like 26 or 7. He has no power except his words. Here you have a public official who we pay, who has actual power, who's voting for things, who's making policy decisions. And those decisions would include, in fact, they are focused on the murder of people who did nothing wrong. And yet no one thinks it's a big deal. Well, this is just totally fine. I mean, if there's tape of Nick Fuentes saying we should kill people because we hate their
has some
parents,
kind of chip in his brain where every 90 seconds he has to either do
I don't know.
or
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just
he can't be normal for too long.
Yeah, exactly. There's just there's a ticking clock in his brain that says
pressure valve.
do something strange.
Yeah.
or it's okay to kill children. I would love to see the tape because that's disgusting. And that's basically what the entire U.S. Senate does every single day, and no one notices. Nick Fuentes said something naughty that I disagreed with. He made fun of things that I don't think I would never make fun
He's
of
a
them.
white nationalist who's denied the Holocaust. And what I will say,
Okay,
from
but
my
is that
own
worse than killing kids?
From my understanding of my own, I was just in Germany recently, and it was such a good reminder that the Holocaust didn't start with the gassing of Jews. It started with the dehumanization of Jews. It was language that was used.
The Holocaust didn't start with the gassing of Jews. The Holocaust started with the denial that the Holocaust was going to happen 10 years later.
Yeah, it is. Oh God, it is. There's so much to say.
It
I
concerns
couldn't agree
people.
more. And that's why when you have a U.S. senator, a member of Congress, a U.S. ambassador waving away civilian deaths as if they don't matter, that's the language of genocide, which results, and this is the lesson of the Holocaust, in genocide itself. And it has. So the lesson...
I mean, fucking just that's
not a word out of place. Not a word out of place.
That is a dog walking of whatever point Lulu was trying to make there.
Yeah.
I mean, just he says, I completely agree with you. And also, here is how your point, how language is used first in order to enable genocide, is happening right now.
Yeah.
really watching all of this is that this can happen in civilized countries. In all human beings, there is the capacity to ignore the evil right in front of you. And my point is, it's happening right now. And my job, to the extent I have one, I don't really have a job, but I just want to remind people that we're all capable of that, including me, and that we're watching it right now. And if you think that Nick Fuentes is a greater threat to other human beings than Ted Cruz, I would love to know how.
I can imagine people hearing this and thinking you are soft pedaling Nick Fuentes. You are
just like I can imagine people hearing this and it's just your editor.
I can imagine people hearing this and thinking, God damn it, Lulu, you fucked that up.
Yeah.
That's not what we planned.
I can imagine people hearing this, and it's the organization Camera, which is set up specifically to monitor the New York Times and other newspapers.
I can imagine Rabbi Shmuley hearing this and pulling the dildo out of his ass,
right?
Rather roughly and tearing a membrane.
Yeah, it is just God.
Apologizing
I'm
for Nick
hardly
Fuentes.
soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes. I'm trying to awaken people to killing of innocents in our midst, which we are not only encouraged to ignore, but really told to ignore on pain of being denounced. And I'm just saying, no, I'm not doing that.
Oof. It's brutal to watch shit like this because, this is just one of a million different examples of like mainstream institutional media boosting a prominent right-wing anti-Zionist voice, and, in their attempt to try to tie sort of the right-wing ideology to their anti-Zionist beliefs and say like, hey, isn't this painted with some white nationalist shit going on? In their attempt, they end up completely looking like the psychopath.
Because they give him an opportunity to speak very humanistically, ecumenically, and not based on any apparent right-wing, certainly not even racist or white nationalist dogma. Everything he said there is right. is in its essence. First of all, it's correct. Secondly, it's founded in principles any sane human being can get behind. Now, whatever else he has in his little ideological grab bag, that's a separate question. But for the purposes of these interviews, and he's very skilled, he's got a kind of judo-like ability to move with the energy of his opponent and expose them.
But it's also not even like, I eventually I just get to the point where I'm mad at the fact that like it's not even judo. The dude is just simply able to be honest about what he sees. He's simply able to not exceptionalize the state of Israel or the Jewish experience of bigotry, of anti-Semitism. He is, instead of exceptionalizing it, he's putting it all on the same equal ground. Genocide against one group of people is just as bad as genocide against another group of people.
And making false historical claims about genocides from 80, 90 years ago is not as bad as genociding a group of people now.
Right. And just in
Which is obvious.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's good.
No, of course. And that's the thing. I feel like bad because I feel like Lulu was attempting to do the thing that a lot of like these liberal institutional media people do, which is not ever have an opinion because of the fact that they're trying to be an unbiased reporter. I understand why. The problem is that when you're presented with a choice of who is more ghoulish, or however he put it, a famous white nationalist online and a person in power in government right now who is like advocating and getting what he wants in terms of bombing Iran. He's getting more apartheid in Israel, more ethnic cleansing, more genocide. It's obvious to anyone who is allowed to speak freely about it, to anyone who's not trying to placate the myriad fucking organizations that are dead set on destroying anybody who speaks out against Israel. It is like, so liberal media are always hamstrung. They're always hamstrung with him. And to me, it's not him doing judo. It's just one person who is able to hit targets and the other one who's just like, I'm a little bit, I don't really block so much as I want to talk this out. It's like one person's a boxer, the other person's a baby. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I do. I
think he has skill. I'm not saying he doesn't have skill.
This is the thing. He has rhetorical skill. He's equally good as an interviewer and an interviewee.
Yes,
his ability to string together complex thoughts and sentences that follow a clearly followable kind of logic that doesn't require that you have gone to, some fancy university to understand it, but at the same time is delivered with a certain degree of articulateness, I think is not something that everyone has, including a lot of the people who share his views. Megan Kelly can't do that. Candace Owens can't do it. They can do what they do with a different kind of attitude, but it's nastier. He's able to at least affect a kind of thoughtful, reasonable even just saying the bare minimum, like the patently obvious, and his incredulity at the fact that the person he's speaking to, now that might be part of a performance, but it's a very effective one.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's hard to overstate how bad this is in terms of if you're going to interview Tucker Carlson, you have to be able to be honest. You have to be able to be honest about what is worse. Like, words can lead to genocide, but genocide is genocide. And when he asks you, that question, you could go out and say, look, the fact that you are putting these two things at odds is a bullshit rhetorical tactic, and I'm not going to buy into it. But you have to acknowledge, obviously, words are violence, but violence is violence, and when it's just too simple. Everybody sees it.
But the New York Times simply cannot do that. The only person who would be able to do that would be, say, maybe a Graham Plattner or an actual leftist who Tucker would speak to, who could, if Finkelstein was to go on that show again, and would say, Tucker, I think you're completely disingenuous when you talk about sort of this innocent United States being bamboozled by Israel, or these Western values that are being corrupted by this Middle Eastern state. Since when have we had them? And just, lay out the receipts to show that his premise, and also that his false indignation that Trump became this and he got bamboozled, and Trump has this crazy energy around him. And, I don't know if you saw that clip from the same interview where he talks about how Trump can hypnotize people and he turns people into cowards. And I'd say, well, Tucker, do you have the humility to consider that maybe people who are prone to cowardice are attracted to him in the first place?
Right.
And that people who can be craven, and that if you've apologized already for doing it, can you go a little further and be like, yeah, it was expedient. Sure. It was cynical. That's how you have to interview him. But that also means to treat him with a certain degree of, treat his strengths with a degree of respect.
Yes. And
so you can find his weaknesses. And
also treat, stop having the voices in your head be your editor, or be the, people who work at camera, or who work at, Jonathan Greenblatt at the ADL. Those can't be the voices in your head, because I'm sorry, but we have normalized in the United States and in the West the fringe position. We are doing the fringe thing by even questioning things like, is this a genocide or is this apartheid? The rest of the world and all of the human rights organizations, they all know what this is. So we I understand the need to want to seem detached or be an objective journalist, but apartheid and genocide, I'm sorry, they're objective facts. So you can't go into this conversation mealy-mouthed. And I think this is the thing with liberals. The mealy-mouthedness of it is why no one trusts these institutions anymore. And it's why it's why no one likes fucking libs anymore. It is just ugh.
Also, I'll give her credit for those interviews she did with Blinken and what's his name? But Greenblatt, I didn't know about them. But generally speaking, who the fuck is the New York Times to be lecturing anyone about interviewing anyone?
I know.
About how they do or don't hold, hypocrites, liars, murderers, racists, thugs to account. There's just no moral standing except this kind of assumed liberal preening that they think will go over well with their readership.
Yeah, and it's hard to stomach, it's seeing it so much and the effect it has, because I'll tell you what that's going to do for a lot of people watching it. There's going to be the New York Times liberals who see Tucker Carlson and just automatically, I hate him, fuck you. But then there's also a lot of just fucking normies who, are going to be like, wow, he made some good points. And you've made then a conservative, anti-Zionist voice. You've boosted them instead of, I don't know, get Norm on there. Fucking.
There are a number of sort of Carlson hating New York Times type people and people, also in the progressive world, who tried to find other clips from that interview that really supposedly showed him to be an absolute liar, like transparentently being called out.
There's one where he said,
like fact checking that he never said Trump is the Antichrist or whatever.
And he did say, yeah.
Yeah. And then they deceptively edit it to pretend as if the New York Times showed him the video, and he'd still denied. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Any of those things compared to what we just witnessed,
I know,
are a misdemeanor. They are, those are safeties, field goals at best when he just scored 20 touchdowns on you.
Exactly. And this is why, when it comes to the state of our politics now, Israel is such a strong litmus test for people, for the realness of people. Because if you are not able to call out a genocide, it's been 2.5 years, folks. At some point, it is just, you have to accept the objective fact here. If you can't do it, then everything else feels a little bit muted, a little bit disingenuous. And, this is why, I just watched this video I'm going to show you guys of Barack Obama, who was being heckled at an event. Before we go to break, I wanted to play this because this is just a perfect example of why nobody trusts
By the way,
liberals.
Another person who's objectively way more toxic and destructive than Nick Fuentes.
Yeah,
Nick Fuentes never drone bombed a wedding in his life.
I know, and it's like to talk about that point for a second. The idea that you in any way could hedge on the idea on the question of, well, who is more destructive, who has done more evil, someone who is in power in American politics, or someone who streams. If you're saying it's someone who streams, I'm sorry, but you are delusional.
Who stinks worse? Someone who works in a shit factory in the pits of hell, or someone who just sniffs their own farts all day on the internet?
Yeah, and it's
where did that come from?
It's not to say that someone like Fuentes couldn't gain power. Sure, that's totally possible.
And some people say he has influence with certain people in Senate or Congress or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the idea. Well, he has influence with people in the gatekeeper there is the people with the power.
Yeah.
Why do you
Ted
think
Cruz has more influence over Ted Cruz? Yeah.
I feel like I'm going insane with this fucking logic.
Yeah.
It's like, it is just totally insane. Meanwhile,
Adam's
what kind of leaders?
backstage laughing his head off at his own joke that neither of us got.
Oh, I missed it. I bet it was good though. Let's see. I don't come to the shit
factory and kick the turds out of your mouth.
I got it. It's very good. You were right to laugh. But here is Barack Obama, another person who, yes, is objectively, or has objectively done more damage to the world than some fucking incel like Nick Fuentes.
These liberals, they confuse likability with morality.
I know.
Obama's of course likable.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
If you don't look at his actions, he's charismatic. Right. He's well spoken. He can convey thoughtfulness. He can perform
Ted Bundy
empathy.
seemed like a nice guy. That's the whole thing. And I listen. I'm not saying that Barack Obama is like going to go on a road trip and kill a bunch of women, but I'm saying his literal body count is higher than some fucking incel who streams. Here it is.
Ladies, get in the back seat of my van.
Let me be clear. I'm gonna kill you. All right. Here's so someone is heckling him at this event, and he's and is screaming, "Do you think Palestinians are human?"
They do.
And then he screams, "Will you call it a genocide?" And this is where the hemming and hawing starts.
Quiet. Well, now here's the thing we have to do. Would you like to come up and take the mic? I'm not making light of this, right? But here's I'm happy to talk about this if it's a part of the question.
Hem, ha.
Again, some rules around how we talk. Well, yes, there are disasters and catastrophes everywhere, sir.
I'm sorry, but like he I wish I could address it, but I don't know if it's okay with the moderator. I mean, honestly, there is a bit there where he says, there are rules. Now, you could read that as him saying there are rules, as in don't yell at me, but that's not the rule he's talking about. He's talking about the language.
How
the ground
we talk
rules.
means, yeah.
How we talk means what words we are allowed to use or what words we consider to be off limits. And he's considering genocide to be off limits. Because you'll notice the first question asked by the heckler was, do you think Palestinians are human beings or something along the lines of that?
Do they have human rights? Of course they do.
Yeah,
Yes,
do they have human rights? Of course they do. Do you think this is a genocide? Well, I'm hem, but haw, but hem, but haw. Let's have some ground rules. And then he switches to everybody got problems, man. That's his next fucking point.
Please. Sir, I'm not the president of the United States currently. So there's no point in shouting at me.
This takes a while.
I'm not in charge of foreign policy currently.
Yeah, and I'm not in charge of foreign policy. And as you can tell from my behavior since I've been an ex-president, I don't think my public statements matter. I don't like the sound of my own voice much. And I wouldn't deign to speak up on anything, really, because it's just not my place. And also, when I was president, I had a few minor differences from the current policy.
I'm a private figure now, and I'm a recluse, which is why I'm going to go on the Recluse Tour 2026 throughout different counties who are experiencing elections. And
I'm going to cut Rec loose. Rec loose. I'm going to kick off the Sunday shoes.
Oh my God. It is so hard to watch at this point. And that's not to say that I would totally get being mad at a heckler, or not wanting to speak to a heckler. But when you feel the need to hem and haw at that question of genocide at this point, it just shows that liberals in general they're fighting with their hands tied behind their back and hoping that the world will be okay with that, hoping that they can continue this fucking ruse that everyone is just so tired of. It's just gaslighting to a point of, we're just not even, no one's a sucker for it anymore. There's no one to gaslight.
Yeah. I saw someone, one of these libs raising the alarm about, again, the giant fucking Zamboni-sized lane that the Democrats are leaving open for people like Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
And they said something like, wake up, Democrats. And I reposted, and I was like, I actually think they're perfectly awake, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed. I think they're just being themselves. I think this is them awake.
Yes.
This is them after 3 coffees. This is just them. This is just a normal day for them. I think
it's the only conclusion you can come to.
Yeah.
You think they're really asleep at the wheel, just going like, geez, I didn't know this many people. They're literally hiding a report about what went wrong in 2026 or in 2024 with the election between Kamala Harris and Trump. That report is still not public, and they refuse to release it for the incredibly obvious reason that it just confirms what we all knew all along, which was that y'all decided to be completely soulless when it came to talking about Palestinians and talking about genocide. That people were like, ugh, I don't feel energized.
Yeah,
and
they're not asleep at the wheel. They're popping pills in the passenger seat.
Yeah, this is what they do. This is what they're doing, and it's impossible to look at to draw any other conclusion. There's no learning curve here. They are cowards, and I'm sure at some point they'll look at where which way the wind is blowing. But
and they could take a fucking lesson from Tucker Carlson, even their worst version of him, and make a fraudulent apology.
Right.
If you think he's faking it, why don't you fucking fake it for once?
You fake it. I would love it.
We were like, at least the Pod Johns have done a face turn, and it seems quite sincere, and they're quite open about it, and they're building on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Democrats could do that. They could even do the fake version of it, and it would make some kind of difference.
These motherfuckers are. Yeah, you cannot talk shit about this is all, he's just doing a grift. You grift! Do it! I fucking double dare you. When he says, I'm happy to talk about this, prove it! Prove it, Obama! You can! You just won't. You won't, because there has to be ground rules that don't allow you to go out on a limb and say the things that you know you're not allowed to say. And it's unfortunate. Anyways, guys, we somehow have so much more show for you. Because I
wore the right shirt today, man.
I know. Look at that.
Fucking evil going on.
Yeah, some evil. Two evils. Let me be clear.
Impolite and evil.
Watch my new show with Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast on Netflix.
On Netflix. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum salam. Do you guys? Michael Brooks used to do the really good impression of if Obama was in the Nation of Islam. I was like, mwah. Oh, so good. All right, guys, we do have to take a little break, but everyone stick around, listen to these commercials, don't join the CIA, and we'll be right back.
Oh, you want to hear this interview? Do not go anywhere.
That's right. And we're back. This is Badass Bar, the world's most moral podcast. It is time to introduce our guest. Really excited to have this guest back. This is a returning Badass Bar champion. He is the author of The General's Son and the founder and president of Palestine Freedom House. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, welcome back to the podcast, Miko Peled. I love an exciting intro. I'm sorry.
Good to be with you. Thank you. It's Palestine House of Freedom.
Oh,
Palestine
yes.
House.
What
Literally the only Jew based in a Palestine house that we'd be happy to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because you built it. Or you helped create it. How are things going I visited you in December and got to look at the space there in DC. It was incredible what you guys have done there. That whole back open courtyard area and almost like an amphitheater in the back. How have things been the first quarter of this year?
Well, we're busy as we want to be, which is good. We just had a big event here yesterday out in the courtyard that you mentioned, fundraiser for Gaza that some other group had. There's vendors and food and kids activities. And so there's a vibe that's really fun, and people come and feel like they're actually doing something as opposed to just hearing a lecture, which we have lectures and movies too, but the kind of activities where people are actually engaged in something, drawing a mural and having kids do stuff. And, it's really, really nice. We're really become the hub here in Washington for that sort of activity.
Fantastic.
And it's free. I mean, all the different allies use this place. All the other ally orgs use the space. And it's really wonderful to be part of that. And then we have our own things that we're working on, like outreach to Congress and a curriculum and all the events that we have. We've got a big event and a very solemn one prepared for May 17, which is we're going to commemorate Nakba Day that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we're preparing for that. And,
how is it that Yom HaTzmaut and Nakba Day are on different days a month apart?
Because the Israeli Independence Day follows the Hebrew calendar.
Oh, I see.
Not the.
And it also follows the Advent the Zionist Advent calendar of Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaTzmaut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they commemorate all three.
The stations of the six-pointed star.
Sure.
Yes.
I think of it like a Christmas Advent calendar. Instead of chocolate, though, it's just every day you get a Xanax. And just
and a bigger portion of Xanax every day.
Yeah. Every time it just gets bigger. Xanax, yeah. It helps you forget the crimes.
Yes.
Miko, last time you were on, we talked about The General's Son. Fantastic book. Highly recommend to anyone who is looking to read something. And you have something else coming out soon that you sent us just a chapter of. Can you tell us a little bit about this book that you're currently working on?
Sure, of course, I'm happy to. I can talk about it all day long.
Nice.
So a few years ago...
And if you could include in the answer, what is an anti-Semite like you doing writing about Jews?
That's right.
There we go, I mean, can you... Who would have thought, right?
Who'd have thunk it? Yeah.
Who would have thought? But you know, it's not a completely ridiculous question, because when you're raised as an Israeli, a good Israeli, secular Israeli Zionist, you learn to hate the Orthodox Jews,
That's right.
the ultra-Orthodox community, and the Arabs.
Right.
Those are the two communities that are, in many ways, the Palestinians certainly indigenous, the ultra-Orthodox communities, I mean, many of them predate the state by a lot. So we learned to hate them because the ultra-Orthodox burn the Israeli flag on Independence Day. They don't serve in the army. They're parasites. They're ugly. They're backward, and on and on and on.
It's always it's an image that is always very confusing, I think, for a lot of people when they see Orthodox Jews being beat with batons by IDF soldiers,
Dragged out into the street
and dragged out into the street.
Mercilessly pummeled and bludgeoned.
It's one of those things that I think for a lot of people doesn't make any sense, because as far as most people know, they're like, wait, I thought isn't the whole point of Israel that they don't do this to Jews?
No, but that's a complete misunderstanding. As we talked about when my brother was on the first time, that the reason we had to form a state is everyone else has been beating the shit out of us for 2,000 years. Now we get to do it ourselves.
That's right.
And what's interesting is secular liberal Jews, and even very progressive ones, are just as hateful of the ultra-Orthodox community, even though they show up to the protests and they're always, they keep their space and they're very, respectful of everybody. When I talk to people in the community, the Jewish progressive community, they're always like, they make these statements that I didn't think progressives think in those terms. They hate women. They are da-da-da-da-da. They're so backward. Well, first of all, who's they? Have you visited their homes? Have you spoken to anyone? Have you met women from that community? Because I have. And the way this started for me was, growing up in Jerusalem, their neighborhoods are over there and we don't go there because, we're supposed to hate them and so on. And then one day, it was 2014 during one of the massacres in Gaza, and on their billboards, which is where they put all the news and all the information, because there are no TVs and no computers and so on, I saw this huge notice about the horrific crimes once again committed by the Zionists, a cry to the heavens for these children in Gaza. And I thought, wait a minute, they got this right from the very beginning. They have been the only Jewish resistance to Zionism that still exists today and exists in Palestine. There is no other Jewish resistance anymore for Zionism, certainly not within historic Palestine. And so,
Miko, are they all, or are they mainly descendants of the Palestinian Jews that lived their pre-state, or was there a wave of immigration that contributed to those communities?
It's a combination. I mean, their native language, or the language that they use, is Yiddish. So it's a result of the Jews that used to live within the old city, and then sometime in the 19th century, late 18th century, Jewish philanthropists built communities for them outside the walls of the old city because it was too small. And that's what Mea Shearim is. If you've been to Jerusalem, Mea Shearim was built then and still exists, except there's a lot more people living there and it's much more crowded. So moving forward, eventually at one point they were coming down here to DC for protests. And I just decided to approach one of the rabbis, Rabbi Weiss, actually, who's always there, and I introduced myself, and I said, I'd like to talk to you guys, to this community, learn more, and perhaps write a book.
Now, which community is this?
So the communities that I've been in touch with are the community in New York, in the state of New York, the community in London, in Stamford Hill, and the community in Jerusalem.
Specifically Haredi Jews, or
these are all Haredi Jews. These are all Haredi, ultra-Orthodox.
And Neturei Karta, is that
Neturei Karta? Neturei Karta is the activist group.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
And it's not like an actual organization or anything like that. But the Neturei Karta have always been at the forefront of the fight against Zionism for lots of different reasons. And the name Neturei Karta comes from a story where this well-known rabbi went to another city, visited another city, and he asked the people there, where are the guardians of the city? And they showed him the guards, the soldiers. And he said, no, they are not the guardians of the city. The guardians of the city are the scribes, the writers, the people, the spiritual people are the guards of the
Who's
city.
guarding their soul, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the name Neturei Karta. So Neturei Karta is the activist group, but the community by and large, the Haredi community by and large has always been anti-Zionist, and even now, like you were describing in Jerusalem, the reason they're getting beat up is, besides the fact that they're hated, is that they refuse to serve in the military.
Right.
And today, there are some 40,000 draft age young men in that community. And the army, I guess, needs more people to commit genocide. I mean, it's hard work for these guys. And so they need these 40,000 young men. And they're saying, we will die and we will not serve in your army. And in Mea Shearim, when you walk through, and I think I describe it in that chapter, you see these big signs. A Jew is not a Zionist. A Jew will never participate in the elections. A Jew will not serve in the army, in their army.
Yeah.
And when they're confronted with Zionists, they say to them, we will not serve in your army. This whole state thing was your idea. For us, the Holy Land is about worship. It's not about sovereignty. We wanted the Arabs to stay, and we were perfectly fine living under Arab sovereignty way back in the day. So it's been a very interesting journey. So I've traveled to their communities. I spent Shabbos in their homes. They took me around. I spent days there and nights there. Same thing in London. Same thing in Jerusalem and around Jerusalem. I met with some of these anti-draft activists that are being hunted down by the police. And in that chapter, I think I describe how they
getting rocks thrown at you.
I was one, yeah. And so I got stones thrown at me because they thought I was
a detective.
A detective coming to grab the deserters.
Get out of here, coppers, eh? Yeah. We're Orthodox around here, see? It's the Sabbath, day of rest. Get out of here, copper.
Something like that, yeah. And so, it's been very interesting. I've managed to slaughter all the misconceptions that I had about that community, about women in the community, about this. And when I started talking to them, to the different rabbis, I started with the questions that are out there, like, why are you, people say that this community suffers from serious misogyny, homophobia, all these different things. I put it right up front. Let's talk about these things right away. And of course, I didn't know what to expect because I don't know anything about the community. And the responses I got and the willingness to engage in a conversation about all the different issues was really, to me, it was enlightening and very, very interesting. Now, granted, I couldn't live like them and they couldn't live like me.
Sure.
But they managed to do two things that are incredible. One is maintain the integrity of who they are as a community. And a second thing that they did that very few Jewish communities were able to do is to replicate what they had before the Nazis, wiped out millions of that community. They were able to come back and they speak the language, they wear the clothes, they study the same scriptures. And I think it's because they were able to maintain their education system that they were able to rebuild. And, it's really interesting. There's this other book that came out by Molly Crabapple about the Bund. Well, the Bund was the other Jewish community that was very strongly anti-Zionist. They existed in Europe, they existed in New York, and they were destroyed by the Nazis. And then what was left of them was destroyed by the Zionists that replaced Jewish culture with Zionism. I think this community was able to sustain itself or recreate itself because it's, I think, faith-based.
It's interesting that the dedication to anti-Zionism would seemingly make the anti-Zionist Haredi Jewish population a natural ally to secular anti-Zionist Jews and left-wing Israelis, left-wing Jews in the West. But from what I've seen, at least before October 7th, generally in sort of Jewish anti-Zionist spaces that were more secular, it was like, hey, everyone stop boosting Neturei Karta because they're actually crazy. They're actually, right-wing, all of that stuff. And I always found it strange. Was there a allegiance or some sort of shared solidarity between the Israeli left at some point and these Haredi groups, or were they always just seen as like this separate, strange thing?
No, I think certainly not Israelis. But outside of progressive Jewish communities in general, like I said earlier, don't want to have anything to do with them.
Right.
And it's all based on this
presumption.
It's a kind of a secular Jewish anti-Semitism. It's a kind of a secular Jewish racism against that community, which existed since, early Zionism, really. I mean, my parents, not so much my mother, but my father, hated them and just despised them and would call them name. I mean, it was really, they really hated it. And of course, that goes on until today. So, it's very strange. So I have these conversations with anti-Zionist Jews and progressive Jews around here, and it's always like, oh, those people. And in fact, I was talking to one publisher, and she said, oh, I can't publish a book about these people. I can't publish a book about this community. And it's all based on ignorance and racism.
Completely.
And
it's
we're diehard fundamentalist assimilationists in the progressive Jewish world. And just like the early Zionists, there's this embarrassment of anything. And I wonder the connection between, you said that the two communities it's okay to hate in Israel would be the Haredim and the quote unquote, the Arabs, right? Now that the Mizrahi Jews, the Arab Jews, have been successfully converted into Israeliness and become some of the most, rabid, Arab haters. And I just wonder that, there's a fundamental, it's like, I wonder if it speaks to the fundamental lack of indigeneity in the Israeli psyche, that you cannot be connected to something truly ancient and continuous and be worthy of inclusion in that society. That if you're connected to an actual intact thread of culture and tradition, then you're going to put something above the idea of nationalism. You're going to have something to be true to, whether it's Palestinians who are true to the land and they let the land inform the way they live and how they sing and how they dance and how they dress and how they eat, right? As opposed to being cosmopolitan and of the world, or being part of, like Matt said, a faith-based tradition, which, is going to put you at odds culturally with some of the mores of modern Western society. Do you think there's something to that in the Israeli psyche, anything that is a link to the recent past is suspect, which ultimately means you have to reject your own Jewishness?
Yes, and this is because Zionism is based on lies. And so if you follow the Zionist mythology, it negates what the most observant Jewish communities say, and of course it negates the Palestinian claims. And so you have to find a way to disregard them, hate them, get rid of them. And in fact, one of the ways in which the Zionists are trying to kill that community is through the draft, because when you're in the military, you can't be, you become secular. You can't continue to do this, and they've tried and it doesn't work. And the other thing they're trying to do is they're trying to undermine their education system, because their education is built 80-90% on religious scripture. Yet somehow they're always very successful in other endeavors. Whatever endeavors they get into, they're very, very successful, and they've maintained the integrity of their community at the same time. And this is the thing that they will also die for. They will fight and die to preserve their education and the education of their children. And it was in Ireland, they were commemorating the death of Bobby Sands just a few days ago.
Political
The
prisoner,
IRA
right?
volunteer
From the-
who died in hunger strike.
yeah.
And he was one of 10 that died of hunger strike. And his famous quote is, "Our revenge will be the laughter of our children." And when I'm in those communities and you see the children running and playing and, being children as they are, but still dressed like their ancestors were before the Holocaust, I thought, this is the revenge for the Nazis. This is the answer, not the Zionists coming in with this military fascist perspective and destroying Palestine, but these people. So I'm thinking perhaps I will use that or some version of that as the title of the book, and of course give credit to Bobby Sands, because this is the answer. Because these are the people that the Nazis killed, and these are also the people that the Zionists didn't really care to save.
Right. I have that thought every week. I drive through the Satmar Williamsburg community on my way to and from therapy, and it's the slowest part of the drive because there's all these little side streets and there's a lot of industrial stuff in there too, and then there's just a lot of fucking school buses with Yiddish on the side.
Right.
And the difference between the Satmar school buses in Williamsburg and the more modern Orthodox, whatever, school buses in Crown Heights is that the ones in Crown Heights have some English on them too. It's just these long ass Yiddish words, and I try to piece them together, but I can't quite read Yiddish. Anyway, I drive through this, and you have to slow down. They make you slow down, and you're not just gonna zip through their community at breakneck city speed. And if you take a detour into a side street, you're in a shtetl, you're in a village.
Yes.
And it can feel, depending on my mood, it can feel a little intimidating, it feel a little off-putting, feel really exciting and beautiful and endearing. But one of the thing I always take away from it, like, man, these people won. Like they kept it going.
Yeah.
They kept it,
and creating,
and they don't care what you think of them.
And recreating the shtetl was really the whole point. And that's why if you keep going towards upstate New York, you'll see these towns that are completely Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox shtetls, really.
Yeah,
I mean, they're bigger.
Muncie is one of them, right?
They're right around, exactly. And the Satmar Rebbe, the Satmar Rebbe survived the Holocaust, was saved from Auschwitz under very strange circumstances. I won't get into it. It's a long story. But he went to Palestine and then realized he can't stay there. And then or to Jerusalem. And then he went to London for a little bit, and then he ended up where he ended up in Brooklyn. And that's what brought everybody together, because he was such a renowned rabbi, and Rabbi Teitelbaum. And so that was the beginning of that community. And then he created the community. He said, okay, you're going to go and you're going to start a business, and you're going to go and you're going to start another business, and you're going to go and you're going to start healthcare services, and you're going to go and you're going to build the yeshivas, and on and on. So the community takes care of itself. And that is really the heart of it. But his vision and what they wanted to create is the shtetl, where they live on their own, they're left alone to live their life. They're not exposed to all the outside world, and they've succeeded. And they can't build the yeshivas fast enough, and they can't build housing fast enough, because of course they have 13, 14, 15 children. And I remember speaking to a young. So I was in Jerusalem, and I wanted to talk to some of the activists, kind of the anti-draft activists. And so somebody set it up for me. It was past midnight in a back alley in Mea Shearim, in some bookstore in a back room, and I was talking to this one guy who also speaks English, and within 10 minutes, there were like 20 or 30 young guys from this community who came because they heard there's something going on. So they go to school during the day, they go to yeshiva, and after yeshiva, they just kind of hang around. So they came over. And of course, the conversation, got larger and larger. And these guys are like 18, 17, 19. And they were telling me, they have kosher phones. I don't know if you've heard of the kosher phones. They have kosher phones that are allowed to use.
They don't work
that don't give them
sunset on
access
Friday.
they don't exactly
No access to the internet.
no access to the internet. It's very they have their own area code and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a couple of phone stores opened around the neighborhood that were selling non-kosher phones. So they asked them. I said, "Can you please take your business elsewhere? You know, we're a religious community here." Anyway, they got into a fight with these people. But long story short, I asked these young guys. I said, "Why? I mean, why don't you want to have access to the rest of the world? Why don't you want to? Why are you staying in this community? You know, you're 20 years old. You look like your great parents did with a beard. Some of them didn't even have a beard yet, but these payas and they're like, why would we want to leave this? This is our community. This is our family. This is our tradition." And I thought, fair enough. I mean, you know what I mean? Young people, you think, oh, young people want to rebel and leave. And I'm sure there are ones that do. But by and large, the community grows and grows and grows. It doesn't shrink. And young people just continue and they have a sense of pride. And when you see them protest in Jerusalem against the draft, and I was there, they arrested 2 girls because women are also obliged to serve. And the community just went upside down and they were protesting. They were shutting down main streets. And I was just driving by and I saw it. So I stopped and I started talking to people and, you know, taking videos. And they're yelling at the Israeli cops, "Nazis, Nazis." And I said, what are you guys saying? You're calling them Nazis? What are you doing? Why? What are you talking about? I wanted for them to explain to me what the hell is going on and why did they feel so strongly. And they said, well, they want to destroy our community. They want to destroy our religion. They want to, make us secular and so on and so forth. But they're fierce and fearless. They are fearless. They fight. They protest. They get, like you said, beaten terribly, tortured in the prisons. I mean, it's really horrific.
And it's amazing too. I think, I'm thinking about it in terms of the Israeli left, or at least, what was the Israeli left at some point. You look at the commitment to anti-Zionism, and, between the two communities, one has been able to maintain that tradition. And the other one, had
it to begin with.
It never had it to begin with, or quote, sobered up after October 7th, and so there is something about that I mean is noted in my mind, at least. It's notable.
that community went to anti-Zionist synagogue, which is to say Dizengoff or Tel Aviv, some protest on the high holidays, which is to say whenever Israel's massacring too many thousands of people at once for too long.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
That was their religious practice of their very fickle anti-Zionism.
But you say in the book, you talk about these sort of conceptions that we have about this community. Did they dispel any of the myths? Like how much of it is based on truth? I imagine as a fundamentalist sort of religious community that they would have some views that, you might consider either misogynist or paternalism, possibly racism. Is there any part of that it's at least somewhat based in fact, or is it how much of it is myth and how much of it is true?
Well, it's easy to judge a community based on somebody else's values.
Sure, of course.
And this is a trap we fall into a lot, right? We judge other communities based on values that have nothing to do with that community, that they never had interest in or never had a part in building.
Right.
So here's how it was described to me. Okay, so we are a religious community that follows the letter of the law. From the moment you wake up until the minute you go to sleep, every second of the day, you follow a set of rules. When you're 17, 18, 19, you get married and you have children for as long as the system works, you can have children, and then that's it. And then you start having grandchildren. That's the life in the community. Now, would that work for me? No. But would my life work for a woman from that community? I mean, she wouldn't know what to do with herself. I mean, so women have their own roles. They have their own places where they are comfortable, and they function within that role. That particular set of laws has for them. But I have to tell you a story. I was in Williamsburg, and I was speaking to this one rabbi who was kind of he's one of the benefactors. He was a very wealthy guy. He was part of some of these big businesses that like B&H Photo and some of these bigger businesses that they built. And he and I are talking in their house and, this and that. And then his wife comes in. And she pulls up a chair and she sits next to us. And she's kind of like, she's folding her arms and she's looking at me intensely like she's pissed.
Yeah.
And then she says to me, what do they think? Why do they think it's okay for them to kill Palestinians? What is it with these Israelis? Why do they think it's okay for them? Who gave them the right? Who gave them the permission to kill Palestinians? And she's demanding an answer from me. And so, of course, I was like sitting there for a minute, trying to, collect my thoughts. And I said, well, here's how it goes. They basically secularized the Bible. And when I said that, she burst out laughing. She said, what? What do you mean they did what? What do you say? How can you even say something so insane? I said, well, they say that all the religious stuff in the Old Testament is nonsense. It's our history book. And Palestine is our homeland. And that's it. We're back. And she just thought it was so ridiculously,
I've never heard it. I've never heard it put that way, but I think that is a perfect description of it. They've secularized it and used it only as a pretext to prove their historical connection to Israel. It's
a real estate map.
That's it.
But what would what would that community make of, say, the Hilltop Youth or the ultra Orthodox, extra genocidal West Bank settlers who use scripture to justify a reign of terror and pogrom?
Well, let's say just because you follow you pray however many times a day, that doesn't make you Jewish. If you're a Zionist, then Zionism is a complete denial and disregard of Jewish faith. And there's so many interesting aspects to this. So one of the books they gave me was a book that was published in Hebrew in the year 1900. 1900. Zionism was barely crawling, right? And in that book, all of the greatest rabbis, the important rabbis of the time, published a series of articles warning Jews of the dangers of Zionism and this idea of a state. And they basically say three things. Number one, it would bring violence to the Holy Land. Number two, it will ruin the good relations between Jews and Muslims and Jews who live in Arab countries. And number three, it will cast doubt as to the loyalties of Jews who live, as a religious minority throughout the entire world, which is just the way Jews had always lived. They said this in the year 1900. Of course, Nobody listened to them.
That's crazy. They said this without ever having read Marx once. It's like without coming specifically from, a left-wing ideology. They just saw it for what it was. Yeah. And
there's one rabbi in New York, Yaakov Shapiro. I don't know if you guys have seen his work or not.
Yeah.
So he'd be great to interview. He's brilliant. And he wrote a book that's about, this thick. It weighs a ton. And every home that I visited has this book, and it's called The Empty Wagon, Zionism, The Journey of Zionism from Identity Crisis to Identity Theft. And it's written like a Talmudic kind of a study. It's for Jews to explain to them why Zionism is bad, basically, and why it's anti-Jewish and so on. But he's a great speaker, and he did read every single thing about Zionism ever written. And he mentions that in the book, and he mentions that when he does interviews and he gives speeches. He and I became friends years ago, and I've spent Shabbos at his home too. I've got a chapter of that as well. And it's fascinating how the assumption is that this community is ignorant and kind of in the dark ages and that sort of thing, where I mean, look, every aspect of their life, if they choose to go into business, they become very successful. If they choose to go into whatever other field, they're very good at what they do, and the community takes care of its people. The stereotypes were dispelled. I mean,
Right.
the reality is the reality, right?
Right,
That
of
this
course.
is a fundamental
Right.
Jewish religious community that does not give up on one millimeter of the scripture.
Right.
And it is true that it is true that some women have defected from that community, and some men have too, and some queer people have, and because they just simply couldn't live the lives they authentically wanted to live inside of that community. And some of them have spoken about rampant abuse in that community, or at least maybe not rampant, but radically under discussed. But that doesn't make that community super unique. I mean, the Israeli army, sexual assault, Israeli society, regular society here, secular society.
Yes.
So this thing that we secularists do, we assimilated people do, where we pin social ills on, quote unquote, fundamentalist sects and whatever, without recognizing that all of those things are going on very much under the surface of our normality, is so dishonest. And it really is just
my general thought about this has always been when people bring up, the right-wing tendencies of these particular religious fundamentalists and whatnot. I have the same feeling that I have about any person who is, a Muslim, where I go like, or someone who's, part of, a Palestinian in Gaza. We do this thing where we tend to judge people based on our own particular values, in our society, especially in our, liberal bubbles and whatnot. And to me, I say none of that denies their lived experience or their humanity. A person might be a religious fundamentalist and still be able to look at a situation as morally obvious as a genocide occurring in Gaza and be like, that's wrong. And to me, I give that person much more credit than I do someone who is a secular person who is, going to hem and haw and hedge about whether or not something is considered, a genocide by the literal definition. It's like, I can't be going through, the way I described it is I can't go through everyone's tweets to see whether or not they perfectly align with me. I can't go through a Haredi Jewish communities like individual laws and say, does this person's values match up enough with mine to ally myself with people who are so strongly anti-Zionist that they continued to be anti-Zionist after October 7th, when so many secular leftist Jews and Jewish Israelis decided to abandon it completely,
and that they've put their bodies in the line of Zionist fire way more than I ever will.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, it's like we can flatter ourselves for our secular Western enlightened values all we want. Number one, we are as fundamentalist as anyone. There's a great Wallace Shawn monologue called The Fever, where he's confronting his own class privilege and chauvinism as a liberal Westerner. And at a certain point, he says to himself, or a voice in his head says, you're a complete and total radical. You're a fundamentalist. You're way more of a fundamentalist than the guerrilla living in the hills, or the revolutionary in the favela. If your coffee isn't there in the morning, the world has to stop. If your electric blanket doesn't work, God, look out. Someone's going to have to die,
Right.
So, and if you want to see a real fundamentalist, go back and watch the Tucker Carlson interview that we talked about earlier in the show, and see that New York Times woman and the fundamentalist numbness that she conveys with every single breath, which is a kind of numbness to horror and evil when it comes from Israel. So anyway, I'm just jumping on the train here to say that
it's so true. Yeah. I mean, it's so true the way you just described it, both of you. I mean, it's so absolutely true. And I saw that in me as I was in that community. as I was, spending Shabbos and this and that, spending the night, seeing all the different laws, all the rules, and I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I can't have milk with my coffee because I ate meat 5 hours ago. This is crazy. I mean, you see that once you're in there and you see there's a generosity of spirit, which is very similar to what we find when we're in Palestinian communities, a kindness and a welcoming. But I have to tell you a funny story. I want to tell you two stories about. So when they come down here recently to DC for protests, they always ask if they can use our space to, to put their things, to pray, to worship, and so on. And this happened twice. So last year there was a big protest here, and they asked if they could use the space. So they come down Friday before Shabbos. So if people don't know, Shabbos begins Friday evening, and then Shabbos leaves Saturday night, right? And so they came Friday and they set up. And then I came Saturday morning. I just came to work, and then, and I come and the elevator opens into the space. So the elevator opens and I couldn't believe my eyes. The place is packed and they're worshiping and praying and little kids running around. And for a moment there, I thought, wait, where am I? What's going on here? There are over 100 of them here of this community that came down for this particular protest. And it was, the morning of Shabbos, Saturday morning, they have their, worship, and they were all praying. And as I was walking between them, kind of trying to maneuver my way to the office, like they take a little break and they say, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting us use the space. And outside in the courtyard, I don't know how many children there were. It was filled with little children running around and jumping and whatever, doing whatever kids do. And then in the evening, the protest organizers came to use the space just to kind of, have pizza and, And so you had like a couple of hundred of these radical progressives. And then they took all their stuff out into the courtyard, and they were sitting there and eating and doing their thing. And I thought, I mean, this is what the world should look like. I mean, all these people with Che Guevara shirts and whatever, and then these guys with their payas and their beards and their Torah and their scriptures. And I'm like, wow, So now they know they can come here, and they can't sleep here because it's not allowed. But other than that, they eat, they cook, because they have to bring their food, they have to bring their clothes, they have to bring everything, Which is also a funny story. I've got a chapter about funny stories that they've told me about, how you have to bring the salmon and what happens if you forget the salmon or your luggage doesn't arrive or, all kinds of, stuff like that. And so it was heartwarming for me to come in here and see, it was wonderful. And then the other thing I was reminded as you guys were talking, there's a wonderful rabbi. He's kind of considered the head of the Neturei Karta in London, in the UK, Rabbi Beck, Elchanan Beck. And I've met him. I've known him. His father was a very revered anti-Zionist rabbi here. He passed away. A lot of these older guys passed away during COVID. And so there's an interview with Rabbi Beck where he takes this reporter into the synagogue, and she talks to him and asks some question. And she says, so what's wrong with Zionism? I mean, why is it so wrong? And why is it an affront to Judaism? And he takes her to the Ten Commandments. And he says, you see here where it says, do not steal? And you see here where it says, do not murder? That's what's wrong with Zionism.
And have no other gods before me.
Right.
And don't worship graven images. Yeah.
And so there's so many statements like that, incredible statements and stories that I've been hearing from them as, over the years as I've been working with this community. And it's just been, it's been an incredible education, and I could talk about it, all day long, because now, when you know something, you're happy to share it.
Of course. Well, we can't wait for the book, but unfortunately, we do need to pivot from the heartwarming to the sort of blood curdling. We've got an article we really want to read with you. But I think the conversation we've just had will shed a lot of light on it, because
absolutely
going from that logic and that sense of tradition to the Zionist one, we're going to be reading an article that was written in Hebrew. We're going to read a translation of it, but we'll set it up by reading a piece about that article from Mondo Weiss. by Jonathan Ophir. So the headline is an Israeli op-ed calling U.S. Jews traitors for refusing to emigrate to Israel points to the looming Jewish fracture over Zionism. So in part to mark Israel's Independence Day on April 21st, the former editor of the right-wing outlet Makor Rishon, First Source, wrote a tirade in that paper. Are you familiar with that publication, Miko?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It'll take a whole interview. Just keep going.
Okay. Making the argument that American Jews are traitors to the Zionist cause because they could have come to Israel by the millions, but chose to remain in the, quote, disgrace of their willful exile. And we're going to see this throughout this article. It's so pissy. Like, it's just so, like accusing us of a kind of unfathomable ingratitude. It's just bitter.
This is how I was raised. I heard this every day at home growing up. And worse than that the Jews that died in the Holocaust, it was their fault because they were not Zionists and they didn't come.
Right.
That's right.
So this thread has been this line of horrific I don't even know what to call it has been part of Zionist education from the very beginning.
Yes.
These Jews, all they care about is blah, 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 money and comfort instead of coming and being real Jews and being Zionists. I heard that my entire life growing up.
So we're going to see the 2026 version, which includes an ultimatum. Like, they've had it with us. The article is notable because it not only shows the desperation that Zionists are feeling over a looming divorce between Israeli and American Jews over Zionism, which, by the way, Norman Finkelstein called 15 years ago in a small book called Knowing Too Much, the coming breakup of American Jews in Israel, but also demonstrates why many U.S. Jews' feeling of attachment to Israel have quickly turned to disgust. But before getting into the contents of the article, it's important to share a note about its author. Haggai Segal is a longtime noted journalist in the Israeli media community who also happens to be a convicted terrorist from the Jewish underground movement. He was personally responsible for bombing Palestinian West Bank mayors in 1980, and his group sought to bomb the Dome of the Rock at the Al-Aqsa compound to make space for a third Jewish temple. Nice that he's segued to a nice, post-retirement career in op-ed writing.
And his son is a very well-known journalist. He's an anchor in the news show on Segal.
Okay, I think I know the name.
Yes, Amit Segal. This is Amit Segal's father?
Yes.
And
he was confronted by, God, I can't remember who it was. He was somebody that was on his show and confronted him. And he said, I'm very proud of my father. I'm very proud of the things that he did. He was a great man.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. I love that we're all...
Segal is a piece of...
he's a total
vermin.
piece of shit. But this is... Yeah. I didn't know that he... apple doesn't fall far from the tree. This is incredible. I love that we're about to be yelled at by this guy. I'm very excited.
Yeah. In his Segal was sentenced to 5 years in prison in 1984, serving only 2. In his memoirs written in prison, Segal opined that the bombing of the Dome of the Rock would serve as a purification. And his much later years as chief editor of Makor Rishon, Segal was not shy of allowing incitement to murder, as, for example, in 2016, when he had a senior former educator suggest that the Swedish foreign minister, Margot Wallström, get the Bernadotte treatment, which is murder, based on someone who was killed during the British Mandate, right?
Okay.
Might have been at the King David Hotel, I think.
No, he was killed. No. I can tell you when he was killed.
Oh, please.
He was assassinated in 1948 because he was the UN mediator.
Yes. Yes.
Volker Bernadotte was the UN mediator, and he came with a plan that demanded the right of the refugees to be to return.
Yeah,
and so he was assassinated in Jerusalem. Yeah.
All right,
by the Zionists.
He suggested that she be murdered for her, quote, anti-Semitic DNA. Wallström was at the time right to suggest that there may be an Israeli policy of extrajudicial executions, you think, which merited investigation.
How dare you say that? I'm going to extrajudicially murder you. That is beautiful.
Okay, with that context in mind, let's see what is on Segal's mind now. So now we're going to pivot and actually read this article. So, Independence Day Eve. A final call to American Jewry. You know what's hilarious?
Oh, I love a final call. Is this
But you
the
know
final solution to American Jewry?
No. Final call. You know what that is? That's the name of the Nation of Islam's newspaper.
Oh, is it?
Isn't that read the final call? It's Minister Louis Farrakhan's publication.
I love it. That's great.
Israel is already 80 years old, but our brothers in the United States are still hesitant to come, except for a handful of Zionist tzaddikim, which means righteous ones. It is time to tell them clearly what we think about it. So this is going to be an auto translation, so there may be a few janky sentences, but we'll see. On the day of Passover, between the alarm and the warning, in an underground Beit Midrash, which is a synagogue, in Jerusalem, a young relative of mine was inducted into the covenant of our forefather Abraham. Adir Tzion, they called the circumcised infant.
Cool.
Also known as boy. His happy father explained in English that it was in honor of the famous American fighter jet, the Stealth, which the IDF did wonders with in the war against the Iranians. Yes, wonders, blowing up girls' schools, bridges,
and the
synagogues. In fact, they did some wonders blowing up Tehran synagogues.
That's right. Yeah.
That was a miracle too.
God.
Blunder of blunders.
Oh my God, Jews! Let me tell you.
There's a possible title for you.
We love a little fiddler on this show.
The charismatic Moyle also spoke in English between the blessings and songs in Hebrew. I love a sushi chef who can keep banter going even as he's doing his knife work, you know? Like omakase. English is a language with a strong vocal presence in our streets. When I was a child, no one spoke English on the street or in the grocery store. My late mother, born in London, had no neighbors with whom you could chat in the language of Shakespeare and Churchill. Moroccan, Polish, Romanian, Hungarian, French, and Yiddish dominated the discourse of the surrounding adult population. By the early 1970s, Russian and Georgian had infiltrated it, and since the 1980s and 90s, Amharic had also infiltrated it, but they are gradually fading away. Only English is emerging and flourishing as a second language. Here, we're winding our way to the thesis. It is possible that immigrants from other countries make a greater effort to switch to Hebrew when they are not in the homeland of their mothers, due to the diasporic flavor of their original language. That unwanted diasporic flavor, and the prejudices of the natives of the country. Immigrants from North America and Britain do not have a similar complex. English is the leading means of communication in the world. It's also the leading means of hasbara in the world, the language of diplomacy and high tech, and certainly the foreign language most familiar to the ears of natives of the country. Well, it depends which natives you mean. Therefore, due to the abundance of English sounds, there is sometimes a feeling that half the Jews of the United States have already immigrated to Israel in the last generation, like the mother of little Adir Tzion. His father immigrated from Britain. Unfortunately, this is a very mistaken feeling.
All right. We're about to yell at me. I'm excited.
The largest Jewish... Sorry, I'm not ready to yell yet. The world's largest Jewish diaspora, the remnant of the demographic hope of the state of Israel. Help me, diaspora Jews whom I despise. You're our only hope. Is arriving here bit by bit in a terribly stingy manner.
Oh, those stingy American Jews. They're so stingy
they
with their
keep
uprooting of
us.
themselves.
They're Jewing us demographically, you know? These demographic penny pinchers.
You're Jewing us out of our statistics. Wow.
So small as to be an insult to the vision of the return to Zion.
Wow.
It has never flowed to us en masse like other diasporas, Morocco, Yemen, Iraq, and
you
more.
should try planting some bombs. Maybe try
you
planting
should
more
bomb
bombs.
synagogues in St. Louis and Chicago.
God.
Parody.
Yes, joking.
The Russian diaspora has shrunk dramatically in recent generations, from about 800,000 in 1970 to only about 120,000 today. Yes, fewer Jews in these countries. While the American diaspora is only growing. Even when we are solemnly heralded with the news of a record immigration from the United States, it is the joy of the downtrodden poor who received $1 from a millionaire cousin, not even a fraction of his budgetary capabilities.
Jesus.
There's a lot going on in that paragraph, isn't there?
There's a lot. It's very bitter.
Since the establishment of the state, a total of about 180,000 Jews have immigrated from the United States. That's fewer than I would have thought. According to data from the Ministry of Immigration and Absorption, 3,773 people immigrated in 2025. They are only 0.06% of the estimated Jewish population in the United States, according to the diligent demographer Professor Sergio Della Pergola. 6.3 million. This is somewhat... Yeah.
What's amazing about this right now is we are now getting into him essentially having a list of Jews in the United States and being like going name by name, furious that only a handful of those names have so far made Aliyah. Like, I like the image of him going through the list and just going, but where's Daniel Mate? Where's Matt Lieb?
He's the chief high executioner in the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, The Mikado. He's got a little list and not one will be missed. You know, he's going to cross us off the list and make sure that we...
Oh, man. It's just wild.
I've got them on the list. They hate our right to exist.
Wow.
This is a somewhat generous estimate in defining a person's Judaism in relation to strict sage law, but our law of return is also quite generous. Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah.
And it's a little stingy to some people, you know,
right?
But
very
when it
generous.
comes to Jews, Matt Lieb could move there tomorrow,
generous
and
to
Mohammed
me.
Al-Kurd could not.
Yes.
Although Muhammad al-Kurd was born there, but the point, you get what I'm saying. And takes into account the constraints of marriage in the diaspora. Yeah, these terrible constraints of marriage. And I'd so much rather get married in Israel where it's free. You can just marry anyone you want, right? For every 10,000 American Jews, only about 5 immigrated last calendar year. Fuck yeah. In 1971, the true peak year of all time, a little more than 8,000 immigrated, a mere thousandth of the total number of Jews in this vast diaspora. In other words, even in the peak year of peaks, only 10 American Jews out of every 10,000 bothered to go to the land of their ancestors, and there is no doubt that this is indeed a great hassle and a grueling mental effort. Tsabar will not understand this. Is Tsabar some kind of acronym? Do you know what that is?
Sabar is the prickly pear, but it's the nickname for Israelis.
Sabra, right.
Sabar, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
Sabras will not understand this, he's saying.
Right.
Unless he means the fruit will not understand it.
There is so much bitterness in this. It's really wonderful to see.
How bitter they are. It's lovely to see them being bitter.
Yeah, just because this is like I can feel in my head a voice that's saying, you know, what do we have to do for you? We let you go for free for 11 days on birthright. We assign only the hottest IDF soldiers to escort you. And
we don't care if your mother is Jewish.
We don't care if your mother is Jewish. We don't, you know, you can just be someone who just kind of likes Woody Allen movies and we'll let you immigrate. What are you doing to us Jews and people who are Jew adjacent? It's
we
great.
even give you bonus immigration points if you approve of Woody Allen's approach to dating. Right. I'm kidding.
No, I mean, it just seems like such like, this is like the extreme version of like, you know, your mother calling you or your mother saying, what are your fingers broken? You can't pick up a phone. It's guilt at a level that I've never seen before.
No, it's fine. I'll just sit here in the air raid bunker freezing to death.
Yeah, right. No, when you find my dead body, just throw me straight in the trash. That's all I deserve.
Bury me under the third temple. That's all I ask. Okay. All of Ben-Gurion's pleas, his anger, and his threats were of no help. He was the most demanding prime minister in the field of immigration. Like a country that demands immigration. That's so funny because most countries have to wrestle with like, how much do we limit immigration, right? For the good of our own country or for our own ethnic purity or whatever. This is a country that has like an immigration policy of stamping their feet and being like, come already. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Demanding Jews move somewhere without it like conjuring the image of being forced onto a train is that like if it doesn't conjure that image for you, you might be a Zionist. You know what I mean? Like
we sent you rail cars.
You're uneducated. I have to say this thing. So I don't know if we discussed this last time, but I co-produced the short documentary about Jacques Boudou, who is a Holocaust survivor, as anti-Zionist as you can get. He lives in Brussels. And he describes how after the war, his parents didn't come back. They were sent to Auschwitz. And so he was sent to a orphanage. And the entire orphanage was forced to come to Israel. And he says, and this was financed by all these wealthy Jews. And then he goes, because what does a Jew who has money, what does a Zionist who has money do? They send other Jews to Israel.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah.
and again, I remember that conversation as a child, Once the Zionists allowed that, people like, rich Jews to call themselves Zionists because they gave money to bring other Jews, then they pretty much shot themselves in the foot, because now all these Adelson types that have, we're not going to go there, but they can call themselves Zionists because they're giving all this money.
Yeah. Right.
And there's another thing I got to mention, another little anecdote that Rabbi Beck in London said to me once. He said, they're telling me that I'll be safer over there than I am here in London. I've lived my whole life in London. He said, I don't know what a British soldier looks like. My children have never seen a gun. All of our neighbors this is Stamford Hill in London. All of our neighbors around us are Arabs and Muslims. We send our kids in taxis with them driving. We've never had a problem. We never even thought that there might be a problem. And somebody wants to tell me that I will be safer over there than I am here as a Jew.
Yeah.
I don't worry about the way I look. Nobody cares.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, I mean, all these things. This is why Zionism is a failure, because it makes no sense.
Right. Yeah. The mission statement is incoherent to anyone who, just lives in Western society and goes like, well, it's not to say I haven't seen people, draw a swastika on walls sometimes. It's not to say that I haven't experienced someone saying some weird shit about Jews to me. But in terms of safety, especially after October 7th, to try and make the claim that Israel is the safe haven for all Jews of the world, it seems like quite the opposite is true.
And even, he goes on and on and on. He goes on and on and on about the Arab Jews. The Arab Jews were not Zionists. In the 1950s, when Ben-Gurion and his gang realized that the good Jews from America and the West aren't coming, they had a demographic problem. So they said, ooh, let's get the Arab Jews. But the Arab Jews were like, we're not Zionists. This is your problem. This is a European thing. I don't know if you saw Avi Schleim's memoir. The memoirs of an Arab Jew. Brilliant, the way he describes it. So they had the Mossad put bombs in Jewish institutions and then kind of create it would exactly, as a matter of fact, what these rabbis in the book from 1900 said, distrust of the loyalty of the Jews in the countries in which they live. That is how they got the Arab Jews.
Right. Yeah, I've been thinking that the ADL should rename itself Association for Dual Loyalty.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That is what they do.
All right, back to the article.
If they haven't come after you yet, now they're going to come.
Yeah, now they will.
Bring it on, John. Bring it on, Greenblatt. Ben-Gurion was the most demanding prime minister in the field of immigration, and he did not hesitate to severely insult the leaders of the Jews across the ocean. He farted in their general direction. He explicitly said that their Zionism was hypocrisy, and that if they were Zionists, then he was no longer a Zionist. I wrote an entire chapter about this in my book, Messiah in the Morning Field. And in the end, I had to comment that it did not help him. They did not come. The gates of Russia opened in the twilight of Ben-Gurion's days. When the Soviets still controlled the Kremlin, the gates of America remained closed by choice. These are the gates these are the closed gates of America that really offend him, not when the gates to Canada and the United States were closed out during the Holocaust.
Right.
No, they like that. They
lobbied for that. Yeah. Nathan Alterman also urged them to come. In August 1967, after 100,000 Palestinian war refugees registered in one day for the return home operation to Judea and Samaria, and the right was gripped by security concerns, Alterman wrote in a newspaper that he was more concerned that not even 100 Jews had registered to immigrate to Israel that day. Oh no! We need numbers to dwarf the amount of Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes yesterday from coming back. We need to get Jews from Boise and fucking Skokie and, to come and box them out.
Right.
This fact is a lightning bolt illuminating the growth of an absurdity, which not only the security authorities should pay attention to. Okay, I want to jump ahead to where he really gets super bitter, and then we'll close.
Because up until now, it was soft.
Jews of the United States do not immigrate as a wall or as a door. We send them emissaries. Rejoice in the initiative of the Nefesh B'Nefesh organization. We've talked about them. They're the ones in synagogues selling illegal land.
Yes.
From time to time, we muster the courage to hint to them that they should immigrate, but we have long ceased to morally disbelieve in the decision of the vast majority of them to adhere to the diaspora.
We are not asking anymore. Get on the train. We tried to play nice with you. I mean, this should be written in its original German, you know?
That's right.
Like, it's so insane.
The law of return needs to be renamed the Judenraus Amendment or something, you know.
The Nuremberg Law of Return.
I want to hear you read the opening of the next paragraph. Go on.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. According to our democratic values and theirs, this is a legitimate decision, of course. Also according, I'm starting to sound like Bill Maher, also according to the Jewish principle of free choice. But according to those values and the principle of our right and duty to tell them clearly what we think of them. Enough of the flattery. Okay, guys. Enough of the flattery. Here it comes. Dear brothers, you are traitors. You are betraying us and betraying yourselves. When you pray 3 times a day, blow a great shofar for our... When you pray 3 times a day...
You missed the point here, Daniel. No. Have you ever listened to Menachem Begin's speech?
No.
There's a famous speech that he gave just before he won the election, where he talks about the racism basically against the Arab Jewish community, and there was a rally for the Labor Party, and somebody made fun of them and used all these kind of derogatory terms to describe them. And then the next night in his rally, Begin spoke, and he talks about the Jews and the brothers, and he would have said, "Dear brothers, you are traitors."
All right.
Yes.
I'll take the line reading.
Yes.
You are betraying us and betraying yourselves. When you pray 3 times a day, blow a great shofar for our freedom and raise a banner to gather our exiles, you don't really mean it, because the shofar has already blown. And there is no longer any technical or political obstacle to the gathering of our exiles, only a selfish obstacle on your part.
Wow.
Although there are still many Jews left in Europe, Australia, Canada, or South America, you are statistically 10 times larger than them. Your lack is felt many times over, and no marginal benefit, financial or political, can cover it up. Therefore, there is no escape from drawing conclusions.
There's no amount of money that you could pay for me to not notice that you have not yet fed yourself into this human meat grinder called Israel. Our cannons are empty and need fodder, and you give us what? Money? Fuck your money. Give
money
us your
and prayers.
Give us your prayers. The shofar has already blown is such a funny thing.
Sorry,
the shofar's already blown. All right. This is it's so beautiful because it is truly coming from, I mean, it's a mask off moment for this type of Zionism, one that offers Israel as a safe haven, Israel as a place where Jews know that no matter what happens in their home country, they can be safe. And instead, it shows it for what it really is, which is a project, a deeply anti-Semitic project, deeply anti-Jewish project, which necessitates the bodies of Jews to go there, live there, become the demographic majority, and, continue to rule over Palestinians and over, everyone else in the Middle East. It's truly gross. It's
more a Sendax Where the Wild Things Are, where they say, "We'll eat you up, we love you so," except they don't have cute faces and they don't play with them. They're just fucking
not enough
monsters.
Jews have signed up for the wild rumpus.
All right.
The shofar has already
is
started.
That's right.
The wild rumpus has already begun.
We started this wild rumpus 80 years ago. Where the fuck are you?
Oh, let's wrap
You're
this
at
up.
home in your cozy bed having dinner. Therefore, there is no escape from drawing conclusions. Oh, I can't wait for this guy to draw a conclusion because it means it'll be over. After all, Israel is 80 years old. 70 years have already passed since Rabbi Soloveitchik's stirring Independence Day speech, The Voice of My Uncle's Heart, in which he lamented the continued slumber of, quote, loyal Jews in America despite the wake-up calls from the land of Israel. How long can we wait? What more needs to happen to you or us? How much, that's a nice little threat. How much more needs to happen to you before you pack your bags and board a plane?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Perhaps the time has come to issue an ultimatum.
Oh, here we go.
Dear
baby.
brothers, if you do not immigrate here en masse within 5 years,
You have 24 hours.
by Independence Day 5721, which is 2031 in unkosher years, we will stop sending emissaries to you and disband the agency. Do you promise?
Is this a promise? Yeah.
Yeah, swear. Don't
Do you
threaten us with a good
promise
time.
no more shlichim browbeating our children at summer camp? In any case, there is
You
not
will
much
have to
point
give
left in-
yourself hand jobs. Yeah. Oh,
You will have to tell yourself you can't understand until you've served in the army. In any case, there is not much point left in their mission and its existence. I agree. Those who wanted to immigrate have already immigrated. Those who are still hesitating should decide quickly. The door will close. The shofar will cease to blow and will...
faster.
The chief rabbinate will simultaneously announce in 5721 that it will stop including Jews from abroad in the halachic calculations of the majority of its residents in Aliyah, which concern certain Torah commandments related to the land. Ladies and gentlemen, this window will be closing. To be included in the book of life, you just have to buy your ticket on El Al in the next 5 years. Don't miss your chance not to be damned. Such an announcement will primarily shake religious Jews. Yeah, it'll only shake religious Jews. You think the Jews of Park Slope are going to give a shit?
Yeah.
But they are also those who pray 3 times a day or at least once a week and may repent. The rest of the Jews there are already mentally distancing themselves from us at an ever-increasing rate, partly to excuse the disgrace of their voluntary exile. Too many are willingly giving in to anti-Semitic propaganda. Some even reach the low point of supporting Hamas's invasion of Israeli territory on October 7th.
Some even start podcasts specifically about Israeli propaganda. These low diasporic scum will do anything not to move here. Yeah.
Thou shalt have no pods before me. Anyone who doesn't believe in this should read. It wasn't that good, Matt.
I'm just thinking, I'm going to start, instead of writing pod, P-O-D, I'm going to do P-D.
P-D, yeah. We're the world's most moral P-D cast.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't believe in this should read the comprehensive interview on the Haaretz website with Ariel Angel. Oh, he calls out Ariel Angel by name.
Wow.
The editor of the successful anti-Zionist magazine Jewish Currents.
What
It is a good interview, actually, in Haaretz, talking about how American Jews are distancing themselves. And she's gentle. She's relatively gentle. She maintains positive relationships with Israelis in her life. But she's talking about how Jews understand that October 7th had a context and all that. What is it to them and us? What is it to us and them? Judaism is not genetics, really. It is first and foremost an idea. And the land of Israel is one of its pillars, not a scaffold that can be removed and hoped will be continued to survive. Wow. Mass immigration to Israel as soon as possible would be a life-saving immigration for American Jews. Somehow they will survive the rising wave of anti-Semitism, but their Judaism will not survive without the land of Israel. And that brings us back to the absolute antithesis of the sanity you were citing earlier, Miko, when it comes to the Neturah Karta. Here's a guy completely inverting it. Thoughts?
Wow.
Yeah. And he's just missing out one part, that for Jews throughout the millennia, the Holy Land is considered a place to worship. It was never about sovereignty.
Right.
It's about worship.
Yeah.
And that's why in 1948 the old ultra-Orthodox communities were begging the United Nations to give them another kind of identity because they didn't want to have Israeli ID.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't want to have anything to do with this. And I'll tell you one last story, and then I got to run.
Yeah.
There's a famous anti-Zionist, the Turikarta rabbi in Jerusalem, Rabbi Luria. Rabbi Amram. And one of the books that, again, I got from one of these rabbis in Jerusalem, Rabbi Hirsch, is an interview of Rabbi Amram by one of his students. And he asks him all these questions. And then he says, if you were in charge, what would you do? Now, I remember the name of Rabbi Amram as a child. This horrible, I don't know, Osama bin Laden, whatever. I don't know, like horrible anti-Zionist, horrible hater, And so anyway, the student asks him, okay, Rabbi Amram, if you were in charge today, this is the 1970s, he said, what would you do first? And Rabbi Amram said, first, I would ask the Arabs to come back from exile, take control, take their country back, live as we used to do before. And the student says, what are you talking about? They want to kill us. They want to throw us into the ocean. And the rabbi says to him, who told you this nonsense? Where did you learn this nonsense? Now, Rabbi Amram's family is originally from Hebron and then moved to Jerusalem. And he says, in Hebron, we lived as neighbors for centuries. In Jerusalem, we lived as neighbors and friends for centuries. Who told you this nonsense? He says, the best thing that can happen to us is for the Arabs to return and to take control and to have their state, and we will live within it. So that's the spirit of that community, and that's who the Zionists hate the most.
Yeah. I mean, truly wonderful contrast between those two. Hearing that article read out loud, and then also, hearing the thoughts of anti-Zionist, Haredi Jews, as told by, you, Miko. It really is a contrast. It's really something. One version is, yelling at us, and the other one is, saying that we are. Looks like we were right. We were right, Daniel. We were right this whole time. Miko, it was really wonderful to have you on again.
Yeah, too much fun, guys. This is really too much fun.
We really love talking to you. Where can people find your work? Where can they follow you on social media or anything?
They find me on social media. They can follow Palestine House of Freedom on Instagram, see our website, PalestineHouseOfFreedom.org. They can message me. They come visit. I mean, we're open. We're here all the time. We have events all the time. Like I said, we're planning a very solemn event for Nakba Day, but we do events and markets and all kinds of things that are also uplifting.
Yeah.
So, I'm all over the place. Welcome to come and check us out.
Absolutely. And we'll put links to both your book, The General Sun, and to Palestine House of Freedom in the show description for anyone who wants to check it out, as well as social media links. Miko Peled,
great.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
Of course. And thank you to everyone out there for listening / watching another episode of Bad Hasbara. BadHasbara@gmail.com for questions, comments, and concerns, and patreon.com/badhasbara. Please join now. All right. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, from the river to the sea.
Is there such thing as an honorary Haredi?
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Taking Molly us. Michael Jackson us. Yamaha Key